Hi, my name is Clare and I'm the mother of 3 teenagers with FASD.
I'm Jessica, a PhD researcher specialising in educational interventions for children with FASD.
And together we are the hosts of Spotlight on FASD, the UK's first podcast dedicated to shining a spotlight on fetal alcohol spectrum disorders.
FASD is a condition caused by prenatal alcohol exposure that affects hundreds of thousands of children across the UK.
And we're here to bring these conversations out of the shadows and make sure that no one living with FASD feels alone. Hi and welcome back to a brand new season of Spotlight on FASD. This is season 3 and this season is going to be dedicated to one topic, one very, very large topic, but one topic. And we're going to open the can that is education and FASD. So this first episode of the season, we just want to set the scene because I think certainly before I knew what I know about FASD, if someone was talking to me about education and FASD, in my mind that is academic stuff. That is, how do children with FASD learn their maths and their English, and how do they manage inside of a school? But a decade down the line, education, it has a very, very different meaning to me. So I think that it's something that we need to we desperately want to help and offer our knowledge and our assistance to learning professionals, to teachers, learning support assistants, education experts, dinner nannies, classroom assistants,
teachers.
Yeah, everybody who is involved in the world of education with children and young people with FASD. We absolutely know the difficulty that you face trying to help educate children like ours, predominantly because you have absolutely no idea that you are trying to educate a child with a brain injury. And then even if you do know that, there is just nothing out there as to where to start, or there hasn't been anything out there as to where to start, as to how to support them properly. So we just want to kind of just set our stall up, because we are so dedicated to this. This is the part that I am super, super passionate about, because it's the way I look at it. Education and engaging with education. So as learning professionals, and I do feel like I'm already addressing this podcast to learning professionals, and it's for everybody, and it's for parents and carers, it's for anyone who has an interest, but it kind of is aimed at learning professionals. So this is what I've learned, and this is a very powerful thing that I'm about to say, and I would never say it lightly, but it is so, so true. So as teachers, as learning professionals, you have the ability to save children's lives and to contribute to the loss of life through education. And those are serious, serious words, and they come from a place of positivity and optimism, but I have to be truthful. And this is the power that is within your gift. This is the power that you hold of being able to get it right or get it wrong, and what the consequences are.
And that's it. And it's like a seesaw, and it can literally go from as good as saving a life to the other way, to loss of life. And it's just about finding that balance, and not only finding that balance to a point of coping, but finding a balance and tipping it in the other direction, so that it's a positive experience for everybody. Because that the more negative experience, we're looking at things like a lack of awareness of FASD, not understanding FASD, not being trained in FASD, not knowing that the child in your classroom has FASD. There's this huge list of contributing factors that will lead to a loss of life as a result of disengagement from education. And we'll get into that because it does sound very, very extreme. And, you know, it's not a very, very clear-cut direct link to, you know, child does badly in school, a loss of life. But this is what we're seeing happen, and this is what you know, we do know about this condition, and the power that educators and learning staff, like anybody at all, we're not directing this at special educational needs teachers or anything like that. Anybody, as Claire said, anybody who's involved in education has the ability to tip that balance and to bring these children back into a positive place in terms of their education.
So, you know, it is quite a dramatic way to start, like, oh, if I don't do a good job in the classroom, the children are going to end up dead. I'll tell you how we get from that step to you know, that huge leap. So when it comes to care experienced children, the statistics are, and this was quite a long time ago, so you know, these are probably conservative stats.
Mm-hmm.
Around about 72% of male children who have been touched by the care system at any point will touch the judicial system. And there are lots of ways. It might be one little brush with the police. It could be end up in prison. So this is what that statistic that was delivered to me on a training course that I kind of forced my way into as the only adoptive parent with foster carers in my local authority 12 years ago, maybe now. And that statistic changed everything for me. I was blissfully unaware of anything like that. Very naive, really. I'll totally admit to that. So I was told by someone who I really trusted, a very, very good, very professional clinical psychologist who really knew her stuff. I was just told this statistic very matter-of-factly, but I was being told that about my boys. So I had a 28% chance of keeping my boys out of the judicial system. And that day, everything changed for me that day. Because what I didn't know then, that I know now, is that not only were my children care experienced, but they had fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. So those stats go even higher into the 80s for people, 80% for males with FASD entering into the judicial system. And that fueled me because I thought, right, okay. And oddly, it didn't really scare us. When I look back now, I don't know why it didn't terrify us, but I was just like, right, okay, I keep them in the 28%. How do I do that? And my every waking moment for 12 years has been putting whatever measure into place that I need to put into place to keep them in that 28%. I read a statistic today, which is on the gov.uk website. So it's the most up-to-date stats around care experienced people in our prison population. So just under 30% of our prison population in the UK is made up of care experienced people. And that just, so, I mean, you know, I'm going to be brutally honest. My opinion is, if that is the stat that's on gov.uk website, that is going to be as conservative, and it's going, you know, that is going to be the best picture. It's probably highly likely to be way, way worse, because basically the government, so our local authorities, have been the parents of these children while they've been in care. And these children have just gone into the judicial system and into prison. So we know how high of a percentage care experienced people have alcohol related issues. So we know how many have been exposed to alcohol in utero. It's a massive percentage of them. So it's not difficult to do the maths to think how many of those, of the 30% of our prison population, have got a brain injury, have got a disability. So I think that, you know, I know it all sounds quite dramatic, but this is the cincher. So when I was given that statistic, I was like, right, okay. So how, like, what is this? What is the step from care experience to ended up in the judicial system? Why is that likely to happen? And it's one reason, and that is disengagement from education. So when we talk about education, it's really got very little to do with maths or English and history and academic stuff. For children like ours and young people like ours, it means everything else. It has the biggest impact on their lives. And yeah, school and education has an impact on every young person's life, but it's not always life or death.
Mm-hmm.
And it is for children like ours.
Yeah.
Because the path they end up going down is a very, very different one. And that's why, because I feel like it's getting a little bit, oh God, this is horrendous. It's not actually, it's really exciting. And there's probably only me could go from death to it's really exciting in the same sentence, but it is, because what we know is early intervention in education makes all the difference. It saves the life.
We can change it. Yeah.
Yes, it is absolutely. Yeah. It doesn't have to be that way. So what I was just saying to Jess before, and I am going to let her speak in a second and get a word in, but I'm really, this has really got us going today. As learning professionals, as teachers, as learning support assistants, you have got it within your gift to be able to affect a massive change in our society. Because what we do know is you play the biggest role with our children. You can have the biggest influence in a good way or a bad way. But imagine that you were given the support that you needed, so you were able to support these children in the way that they need, which means they don't disengage with education, which means they don't engage with the judicial system, which means they don't become one of those horrific statistics, then that is going to change what our society looks like. It's going to change what our prison population looks like. It's going to change everything, like change the world, really. Like, I know that's a bit of a stretch, but we can change our little world on this little island for definite. And I think that a lot of teachers and learning professionals, maybe, you know, everyone's had a crappy year. You have really, really had it kicked out of you this last year with everything that's been expected of you in your roles. And what I was thinking about before, you know, you don't get into teaching, you don't get in it for the money, you don't get in it for the holidays, really, because you spend all of your holidays either marking or preparing. You're working round the clock. So everyone who is in this line of work is in this line of work because they want to make a difference to society. They want to help children. And that is why we feel that I feel like we've got something magic to be able to share with you that I don't know a single teacher or support worker who wouldn't want to have this knowledge to be able to use it. So I think that's where we want to go in this season, and break it down into the practical stuff, but we needed to really press home with, when we say education, this is actually what we mean, this whole huge bigger picture and the power that you hold in the role that you have with our young people.
Yeah, it's definitely education. We're not talking about you know, algebra and things like that. We're not talking about academics. We're talking about engagement and social skills and aspirations and, you know, all of the other aspects of attending any form of education, really. And my biggest fear with this season is that learning professionals don't feel that this applies to them. And, you know, I'm aware when we spoke to Dr. Alan Price, he mentioned that they were looking at doing a prevalence study in the Greater Manchester area. That's something that's ongoing with Salford University. But the best figures that we have for FASD in the UK are Dr. Cheryl Maguire's study from 2019 that says potentially 6 to 17% of the general population of this country are in some way affected by prenatal alcohol exposure. And those numbers are enormous. And when you break it down, we are looking at one child in every classroom, every single classroom. So year on year, as a learning professional, some, you know, whatever capacity that is, you have come across it. It is relevant. Like, you can't avoid it.
You cannot avoid it. You can't.
It's unavoidable. And if you've ever experienced working with a child who has been involved with the care system at all in their lifetime, then you will know the additional challenges that come with that. And you now know the stats around that the percentage of children in the care system who have been prenatally exposed to alcohol. Like, we can very easily add it up. This is relevant to absolutely everybody in this profession. Even if you just listen in, take on board little bits of what we're saying, keep it in the back of your mind, one day this will be you. You will be on the front line in that position of really great influence for this child's life. And I know, you know, Claire spoke about loss of life, and particularly with the examples of the prison population. You know, these children, you know, disengaging from education and growing up and ending up in the prison system. Well, that to me, that's a loss of life as well. You know, they've not died, but for them to have been locked up due to system failure after system failure and being let down by people who didn't understand the impact of their role on that person's life, well, how much have we let them down? Like, completely. Because from the moment of conception, this is something that I was having this chat with somebody the other day, actually, about how care experienced children, their records come from, you know, birth or whenever, you know, social services gets involved or whenever that is. But actually their story starts from the moment of conception, because all of this trauma is pre-birth. Alcohol exposure is trauma pre-birth. So from the moment of conception, we're going back way before they're even born. And if we don't get in there with these early interventions as soon as we possibly can, which is what this whole season is going to be about, then we've not done our bit, and we're just adding those building blocks to the seesaw to tip it, their life, in a very negative direction. And we also know, side note, because this is something that I you know, I say quite a lot, and I feel like there's misunderstanding. Well, I don't know, maybe it's I don't know. Anyway, people see FASD as a mental health condition. We talk about FASD, children with FASD being supported by CAMHS because that's the place where they need to be supported. They need to be supported by mental health services. FASD is a physical disability. It's not a mental health problem. It's not it's not a mental health thing. Mental health concerns are secondary to FASD. They are a secondary condition, disability, impact. You know, they come from living with this condition, which is significantly prevalent as well. You know, mental health difficulties in whatever capacity are hugely prevalent within the FASD population, and they too can significantly impact on the life outcomes of an individual, whether we're talking about the loss of life, the success of a life. And again, how do we change that? Education and engagement with education, having a community where they feel understood, where, you know, where they're supported, where they have peers, where they don't fear going every day. All of that significantly impacts. And as you can see, academics don't come into that. They just don't. There's a huge part played there, just from them walking into a supporting environment, or having that supporting environment walk into their home, their safe space, wherever they're educated. And it building these building blocks on the other side of the seesaw that tips it, you know, in a positive direction. You know, education. This is why this whole season is dedicated to education.
I think I got a little bit upset just there starting to, because when you are like frontline and living this life day in, day out, year in, year out, you forget sometimes some of the things that you've had to guide your children through. And when we talk about FASD being a mental health problem, you know, it's a brain injury. It's a brain injury. The same way if somebody was in a car accident and had a brain injury and it's a physical disability and everyone would bend over backwards to accommodate them for the rest of their lives because that was a devastating accident, there is no difference with FASD. You know, that child, that has happened to that child in utero, I would argue 100% of the time it's happened accidentally, because there's always a reason behind the alcohol consumption.
Yep.
So that is an accident that's happened to them. Where the mental health problems come in are, and this is the devastating thing, and I want teachers and I want learning support assistants and learning professionals, I want them to really feel as devastated as me when I say this. The mental health problems, the majority of them, 99% of them, are caused by our children trying to survive the education system.
Yeah.
When it comes to the mental health difficulties that our children live with FASD, it's pretty much all around the fact that we have to snap pieces off them to try and cram them to fit into an education system that is crippling them, mentally crippling them. And on my journey, I have not encountered, from a primary school teacher to a learning support assistant to the head of an academy to the head of student support, I haven't encountered a professional on my journey who hasn't watched what's happened to my children, who isn't in full agreement with that they have seen that is what's happening. And then they, you know, anyone who I've been able to have access to, get me hands on, and to get near with me mouth and like, right, listen to this. You know, it's so powerful to see when, and there isn't a single teacher who I haven't been going through something with and helping them, training them to be able to take care of my children when my children were able to access school, who haven't gone through this awful dip of, and you can see it happening with them. I can see the day it happens with them, or the meeting that you're in where it happens, where they are starting to look back and they are starting to put all the names to the children who they have educated over the years, who quite clearly now the knowledge they've got have been trying to survive school with a brain injury. And it's so difficult for them not to look back and think, oh my God, I can't believe that I did that.
That's what we want to avoid.
Yeah.
And in saying that, those moments, those meetings where Claire sat and she's seen those professionals have that experience, fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Those light bulb moments where they're like, holy crap, I get this condition now, I see it, I see the children, I see what happens. And it's the battle that we're fighting like day in, day out in very different capacities. But they finally see it, they finally hear what you're saying and see it for themselves. But a child has suffered for them to have seen that. And that is what we really, really, really want to avoid. We want to help every single person who has that role in any child's life, in any capacity. We want to help them see it before it has to happen in front of them, because when it happens in front of them, then that is a child that's on a very, very dangerous path and a downward spiral that does not need to be. And you know, I do this day in, day out in a professional capacity, and I see many parents who don't have the knowledge and the expertise to fight those professionals in the same way that Claire does. So the outcomes for her children as a result of her knowledge and her fight here is very, very different. And so we need to flip that. You know, we can educate and support parents as much as we possibly can, but we don't want it to get to that point. We want it to get to the point where every single teacher sees it before it's happening, where that it's starting to happen and the teacher can just get in there. Or, you know, I say teacher, I mean, you know, everybody, but yeah, they can step in there and stop it before it's at the point where disaster happens and there's all these professionals around the table going, oh my God, what do we do now? Like, where do we go from here?
And this is the bit where it gets, you know, I think I hope that we've shocked people a little bit listening to this, because this is how serious it is. But this is what is so fascinating about FASD. And trust me, if you get into this world and if you start taking an interest, you won't ever stop, because it is fascinating. But this is the exciting bit. There are so many easy ways that the support that the majority of our children need in a classroom that will change 50% of their learning experience. It doesn't cost a single penny. It costs not. We're not talking about expensive training programs, equipment. We're not talking about anything like that. These are very, very well. I say the common sense. That's my kind of common sense, because he's the rub with FASD. There are a lot of rubs with FASD. He's the main one. What your common sense would tell you to do in any given situation, flip it on its head, and the opposite is usually what is going to get the result.
Yeah,
that makes sense when we take a little minute to look at the science behind what happens to a brain development when it's exposed to alcohol. So there are huge parts of that development that don't happen, or that happen in a different order, that happen the wrong way. So nothing that makes sense when you think, well, that seems like a really odd way to get around that, but it works. So that's what we've got to share with you. So what we want to say is, if you are dedicated to educating the young people of our country, and that is your passion, that's what you want to do, you need us. But we want to help you. We want to be here to guide you through what you need, because you know you deal with every single diagnosis, you deal with every single situation. This is just one, but we know it is something that you as a whole know very, very little about, and that's unfair. We know we've got our plans to target all of the teacher training programs and all of the universities. That is something that we want to do, because it needs to be done. But in the meantime, if we can get to you through a podcast, and if you can pull a little bit of that learning, and obviously, like we always say, we are here if anyone's got any questions, anyone wants to ask us anything, specific pieces of advice about certain situations. That's what we do this for. You know, I am I'm a strong advocate for my children, but most of the work that I do now, my children are never going to benefit from. But I can't not help the children who've got no one to advocate for them. I can't stop talking about it, and I never will. But I think that I don't do it from a place of anger or sadness. I do it from a place of, oh my goodness, this doesn't need to be this difficult, and it's not difficult to rectify. So let's do this, let's change things. So I think that's, I hope that's explained where this season's headed. If any of you are listening to this and you've got friends who are teachers or any kind of learning professional, please point them in the direction of this, because we absolutely know that it will help them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it. Just that's it. Everybody. And it might have been a hard-hitting episode, and it might have been quite a dark episode, but I hope that you can hear from our voices, or for those of you watching, that you can see, and the fact that we've both got like very, very busy lives, and that we're doing this podcast, and we carve out 40 minutes a week to record these, that we are so extremely passionate about this. And it's not because we're trying to raise awareness of something that's a dead end. It's not, it's so easy. It's not easy, but
it's not unachievable. Yeah, it's relatively straightforward.
Yeah.
If and if it does nothing else, this is something that I can promise. Or you get your money back. Not that it's costing you anything. I can promise that if you listen to us about this condition inside of a classroom, we will increase your tolerance 100-fold. And if we do nothing else, then that will in turn affect how you interact with your children, who you are teaching, who you're working with. So that is something that I can guarantee will happen. Yeah. So that's the worst case scenario. So why would you not want to listen?
Exactly.
My sales pitch.
So do please do, get in touch with us, as Claire said, reach out, social media or email. We're very, very easy to find. Spotlight on FASD, not that many of us around. And do, subscribe, keep listening, pass this on, because all we want to do here is get the message out. We're not paid to do this. We're here because we have knowledge that we want to share with every single one of you, and we want to help.
We're gonna, so I know those of you who listen to know a little bit about my journey. So I was well into education life, school life with my children before I found out what it was that I was dealing with. But I sometimes think that is quite a powerful place to come from, because I know sometimes the best way to get something right is when you've done it so badly wrong. Yeah. And I can say that I did education wrong for my children for a long time, caused lifelong harm for definite. But I didn't know then what I know now. So I don't beat myself up about it, but it is a fact. So that puts me in a position where I look back now and I just think, sometimes I dream about eventually down the road being a foster carer with the sole purpose of passing on children to their forever homes with an arsenal of information that can't be erased, that is like a how-to guide. When you get to nursery, here's your checklist. This is what we need to be looking at. This is what we need. We need an EHCP. We need this. And that all comes from the fact that when I look back now, the things that I would have had in place for my children would have meant a very different journey for them. So I think if we can help a single person do that, then that is absolutely what we're going to do. So that's it for this week. kind of set the scene for the way the season's going to go, and we're going to try and be quite methodical. There will be lots of seasons about education because it's so enormous, and we want to go into it all in such detail because we want to practically give help and advice for different situations. So we just hope you'll tune in next week to listen to the beginning of it, really, the beginning of where education would start, what to look for, what are the pitfalls, what you can be doing, the importance of certain things. So we look forward to having you join us then.
Breaking it all down.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening, and goodbye.